Yes, welcome to the third episode of our video. And on our previous video, we have an opportunity to build this categories page. And you can see this is the page that we will be organizing our expenses based on our categories. And as you can see, we have a way of adding the new categories. Like here, you can add a new category like food and dining. And when you choose the color, so you see this will be the preview, and then when you create, you should be able to see that new category added here. And you can see this is the flash message, and you can be able to remove it. And also we have a way that you can be able to edit it, and you can see you can change the color if you want, and you can change the text, and after that you can be able to delete it. But as you remember, I've already mentioned that you can only be able to delete a category if it does not have any expenses on it. Okay, so now before we go and start to build the expenses on the application, it is a good idea to create first the budgets, because you cannot spend if you don't have the budget. Okay, so by that concept, let's go direct and start to build the budget components. So let's go to the code, and here we are going to create two Livewire components. So let's start with the first one, PHP @ make, then Livewire. Then the first component should be the budget list. Okay, and the second one should be the budget form. Okay, so this will be the page where we'll be listing the budgets, and this will be the form where you'll be able to add or edit the budgets. Okay, so let's create that. Yep, so currently we have two components. So now let's register them first on our web.php so that we can be a little bit quick. So here let's define the one for get, then you can just say this should be budgets. Okay, and then we can say budget list, and then we can say class. Okay, and then we need to rename this, let's say, to budgets .index. Okay, so it will be something like this one. Okay, so after that means we need also to add this to the sidebar, which we use it as our layout. So we are going to add it here. So let's add it here. So this should be budgets. Okay, as we did here. So it is budget.index. So from here you can see it is budgets.index. Make sure you update the one on the hyperreference and the one on the current, which checks if this is the current, and if it is a current, it will be highlighted like this one here. Okay, so after that, now we added that. Now let's change this value or the display text. It should be budgets. Okay, and after that we need to update this icon. So let's go to the hero section, hero icon. Okay, and for the on the budgets, let's use the I guess the credit card. I guess this one will be great. So let's copy this one, and we are going to use it here. So replace this icon attribute of your navigation list item, so which is coming from flags. So after that, now we should be able to see that new link, you see. So this is the new link, and you should be able to see the new icon updated here. Yeah, so you can see now this is the budget, and if I click that one, now you see the page is blank, means our page does not have anything. So now let's start to update that one by editing the component that is budget list on this one. Okay, so this is the budget list, and let's start to add the following code. So the first one will be to define the public key properties. So the first property will be the selected month that you want to create the budget. Okay, then we are going to have the selected year of that particular budget, and then we are going to say another one which should be show create model. Then we can say false. Okay, and after that we are going to have a mount function. So let's say public function mount. Okay, and inside this mount we are going to initialize the selected month and the selected year. So selected month should be equals to now, then the current month. So when you use this now, means this is an instance of Carbon, so it will get the current time, and from that current time we are going to access the current month. Okay, and then for selected year it will be the similar thing. So this should be selected year, and this should come from now, and then we need to access the year. Okay, so this would be actually the current year. Okay, and this one should be this way. Okay, yeah, so now that's fine. Now the next step will be to define a function or a computed property that we are going to use to get all the budgets. Okay, so here we need to say public function, then we're going to say budgets. Okay, and from that budgets we're going to have something like this one. Okay, so here we are going to return a budget, so it will be the instance of budget model, and then we are going to call this with, so we want to get the category. Okay, also we need to run the where condition. Okay, and here we're going to say the first condition, the budget should be belonging to the logged in user, so like this way, and the second where condition should be actually the month should be equals to the selected month. Okay, also the same thing for the year, so this should be year. And if you remember, on the budget here we have the month and also we have the year. Okay, so that's why you see here I'm doing the where condition on these two columns. And after that we need to get what we were querying, and after that in order for this data to be like well shown on our page, and which I'll show you in a minute why I'll do this. So here I want to add another method which is called the map, which means I'm going to map the details that will be returned by the function or by the above query, and then we are going to map it here. So let me just say map, and then we're going to map it to this particular variable or object, and then on this object we are going to say so budget, and then spent amount can be equals to budget, then we get spent amount. Okay, spent amount, which we have already defined it from the budget model. Okay, so if you go back here, you see, so we have this method which I mentioned before, that this will be a helper method that will help us to get the total amount that was spent for that particular budget. Okay, so here it will just check for the category, and then it will get the total spent amount, and if that's not the case, it will just return the sum of all expenses for that particular month and year. Okay, so here we get that spent amount, and after that we need to let's say budget, and then we need to get the remaining amount, and then we are going to say budget get the remaining amount, because we already defined this one. So you can see the remaining amount, it will be the amount of that particular budget, and then you have to subtract to the spent amount that you get it from here. Okay, so that's why we have this one, and then we have budget, then we need to get the percentage of the budget that has been used. So here we're going to say budget, and then we need to call the function for getting the percentage, which is this one, get percentage used. Okay, so it will be like that one, and then we need to check if the budget is over. Okay, so we are going to say is over, and then this should call, no, it should be budget, and then we are going to call is over budget. Okay, like that one. So here means all of the things that we get from here, then we add this other data. So now means if you try to, let's say, to render that here, so like to dump it, you should be able to see those details in your data, but because we don't have any data here, so it will not work, but later on I'll show you why we do that. But if this gives you the error, so you can just use this facade. Okay, so you can use this facade. Yeah, so from this you will not see that error again. So make sure that you have imported this facade of auth, okay, which will help you to get the authenticated user. Okay, so after that, now we need also to define another function, which should be like this, as I've mentioned, this should be a computed property. Okay, so if it is a computed property, so we need to use the attribute to say this is computed property. Okay, so import this one. Okay, and yeah, it should be like this one. Okay, so now let's define another computed properties that we will use. So here I'll say computed, and down here I'm going to define another method which will help us to get the total budget. So what we're going to say is just to say total budget. So this will be the name of the function, and then let's close it. And from the total budget, what we are going to do is just to return the sum budgets, then sum, then we are going to sum the amount of the budget. Okay, so here it should be return. Okay, it should be this way. Yep. So now we have these budgets, as you remember. So already we've defined the budgets here, so we can be able to call it from here. Okay, so now we have a way to get the total budget amount, and then we need to have another computed property which will give us the amount of total spent amount. So here we're going to say public function, then total spent. Okay, and from this one we're going to return then the budgets, then we are going to sum the amount of spent amount. So you can see from here on this budget, so we have a way of getting the spent amount, and from here you see we have already defined this spent amount. So from this one means from the budget, here it will be easy way to get the total amount spent. So we just call this spent, which we've already defined it from here. So from this map is where we define it. So it will just call this method, it will give that value, we will assign to this one, and then we can also be able to get it from here and then sum it. Okay, and after that, now let's get the total remaining amount. Okay, so we just need to say computed, and then we just say public function, then total remaining. Okay, and then you are supposed to return the remaining. So remember, the remaining, we have already defined it on here, paste it here. Okay, also we need to get the percentage used. Oh, this one should be total. Okay, and this one should be overall percentage, so we can just rename it like overall percentage. Yeah, you can just use this way, overall percentage. Okay, and then from there we need to just do the following a simple mathematics. So here we're going to say if then this budgets, and from that budget let's say we can say if the total amount of the budget, so if the total amount of the budget, if total budget is equals to 0, means we need to return the percentage of 0. Okay, but if not so, we need to return the total budget. You can just do the following. So we can say total amount spent, okay, divide by, because here we are getting the overall used percentage, so here we are just going to say total budget Okay, then we need to multiply this by 100. Okay, so what we are going to do is to close this one inside this brackets, and then we are going to times it by 100. Okay, like this one. Okay, but for consistency, it's a better way to round this data, because sometimes the value can be with more than 2 decimal places, so it will be a good idea to use this rounding. And the precision, you can just define the precision, so I'll just put the precision to 1. Okay, and then we need to define another computed property. So let's define the computed property for getting all the categories. So here we're just going to say public function, then categories, okay, and from here we're just going to return the instance of category where the user then ID equals to the ID of the logged in user, and then we need to have an order by, and then here we're going to order by the name of the categories, and then we need to get those categories. Okay, like this one. So import this one. Yep, and after that, now we need to share these all of these properties to our view. Okay, so to share them, you can use this way of sharing additional data to the view. So we can just say budgets. This will be corresponding to all the budgets that we have. Okay, then we have another for total budget, so we can say total, let's say spent, so this should be total spent. Okay, also we need to have the total budget, so this should be total budget. Okay, and then we have the remaining, so the total remaining. Okay, and after that we have the overall percentage, so overall, make sure that it is corresponding to this one. Okay, and after that we have the categories. Okay, which will be corresponding to this one. Okay, yep. So now the other method that we need to define is basically the method that will allow you to navigate through the page, because on the page of listing we have a way of switching between two, let's say from the previous month to the next month, or from the current to the next month. So I'll show you that when we start to update the blade view, but for now let's define those methods because are of important. So function previous month. Okay, so this will help us to navigate. So what we are going to do here is just to add the instance of carbon, and then we are going to assign that to the current selected month. So what we are going to do, let me just import this carbon, and from here we are going to create a new date from the carbon, and we are going to use the selected year and the selected month, and after that we are going to do the sub month because we are doing the previous month. Okay, so we are going to minus 1 month, So you see, so it will remove 1 month from the current year and current month. Okay, and after that we are going just to get the date, and from that date object or the carbon instance which is stored here, we can get the month and the year, and after that we assign them to these two properties that we defined on top here, and after that means it will update all of the other functions that depend on this one. Okay, so that's when we are going to see the changes on our page. So after that, now we have another method which is called the next month, which help to navigate to the next or to the coming month. Okay, so to get the next month, we are just going to do the same thing, but the difference is here. So instead of sub month, we are going to use add month. Okay, so from the current selected year and month, we are going to add 1 month. Okay, so we have a lot of let's say carbon methods. So you can add centuries, you can add days, decades, you can add anything that you want. But for here on our context, we are going to add a month. Okay, and if you want to add months, so you can just say add months, and then you define or you specify the number of months that you want to add. Okay, so this is only 1 month, like one step of a month. Okay, and after that, now we need to have a way to set the current month. So to define that, let's use this public function called the set current month. Okay, and from here we're just going to do this, then selected month will be equals to now, then month, okay, and for selected year, yeah, it will be like that one. Okay, but also we are going to have a way to delete the budget. So to delete a budget, we are going to define a public key function which is called the delete budget, which will accept a budget ID. So it will be budget ID, and then after that we are going to do the following. So we need to get the instance of that budget. So budget will be equals to budget, then find or fail. Okay, then we are going to use the budget ID, and after that we need to say if, and then from that if condition we are going to say if the budget user ID is not equal to the logged in user, okay, and then we need to abort this functionality, like that one. And after that, if that's not the case, so we just need to delete the budget, and we need to flash the message or the session message, and then we are going to say flash, then we are going to say the message should be budget deleted successfully. Yeah, so something like that. So up to now we have a complete budget listing blade file, I mean the component class. So now let's go to the blade file here, and from here let's start to update that one step by step. So from there, the next thing, the first thing will be to have the outer div. So we will have something like this one, okay. But as you remember, we need to make sure that this adapts to dark mode. So we're just going to say on dark mode, this should be corresponding to neutral of 900. Okay, as you remember. So now if you go back here, you see, so this will be like this one. And after that, we need to make sure that this is a little bit rounded. So I don't want to see these sharp corners. So let me just zoom a little bit so you can see. So now this one, you see, it is a little bit rounded, okay. And after that, now let's add the header. So on the header here, we're going to have the following things. So on header, we're going to give it a background of gradient as we did for the categories. If you remember, for the categories, we have the gradient of green, as you can see on header, but now we have a gradient of indigo, like this one, okay. And after that, we have the heading, which is budgets, and then you can see this is the like a description of the budget page. And after that, we'll be able to show the current selected year and month, and the user can be able to click these buttons. So for example, when they click this first button, which you see here, this button will call the previous month, means it will going to call this method, and it will reduce, or it will remove 1 month, so it will go 1 month before the current month. And after that, everything will be updated on our page. And after that, if the user click the second button, which is this one, it will set the current month by creating the date, and you can see it calls this set current month, okay. So after that, we have another button which will be for basically for going to the next month. So now if we go to the view, you should see something like this one. So this is the heading, and you can see this is the text, and from here we have the first button, which redirects us to the previous month. This one will set this to the current month, and if you click this one, it will go to the next month. So if you click this one, you should be able to see that the months are changing. See, so now we have gone to September, and if we click again here, you see we go to October, and if I click again, it will go to November. So you can see that this functionality is working as we expected. So the next thing here is to have a body tag here, so like main content, okay. So on main content, we are going to have another div here, which is this one, and from that div, the first thing is to show the session flash message, so the message that we are flashed from the session, which we are talking about this one. So for example, for the deleted, yeah, and that's all. So if there is any deleted data, so the flashed message will be shown by using this particular block of code, okay. So you can see we've already shown you how to use this one, so you can do that, and it will have a button to close it, which call this method, okay. So it will just remove this particular div from the view, okay. And after that, since we have that one, so let's add the overall summary and the overall progress bar, okay. So what we are going to do is to add the following things. So let's add them quickly. So make sure that you are still inside this div. So down here, okay, and let me go back up to here. Okay, so we have the overall summary, which shows the overall budget summary. So these are the things that we were mapping them here. So if you remember, we mapped those things here. So those will be the budget overall summary. So we have the total budget, we have the total spent amount. So if the total spent amount is greater than the budget, so the background or the text of the of that particular total spent amount should be in red. But if that's not the case, it should be of 900. But by the time, as you see here, you should be able to see something like this. So we need to make sure that this is adapting to the dark mode. So to make it adapt to the dark mode, let's start from here and add the dark class, and then we need to say it should be of, let's say we can use gray of 800. Okay, and the text we can just use the 400. Okay, yeah, so this one. And after that, we need to update these text messages, which shows the total budget, total amount spent, the remaining, and they use it, how they use the percentage. Okay, so here the text should be 100. Okay, and for the progress bar, also we need to make sure that this adapted to the dark mode. So on dark mode, the background color should be, let's say, gray of, let's try the, let's say the 600, I guess. Let's see what it will be here. Yeah, so this is not bad. And if it is on progress, so if the percentage is 100, it should be red. If it is 90 or greater than 90, it should be orange. If it is greater than 8, it should be yellow. And if it below all of this, it should be green. Okay, so now because we don't have anything here, that's why you don't see that background color. Okay, so after that, now let's update this category budget, which is the like heading. So let's give it like so by default it should be that one. Yeah, but on dark mode, so the text should be of gray, like of 100, I guess. So let's see. Yep, and after that you see we have this button for creating new budget. So this will direct us to this page which we have not yet created. So what we are going to do is just to register the budget form there. So let me just do that. So route, then we can say it says budget, and then create, and then this one should be budget, budget form. Okay, and this one should be dot create. Okay, and after that, if we go back here, this should be budgets create, not budget, should be budgets. Okay, and now if we refresh again, now you should be able to see a blank page. So let's go back to the budget listing, and from here we need a way to show the budget list. So what we are going to do is to add the budget card. So to add the budget cards, we are going to do the following. So the div that we are inside is this one, so we are going to add it down here. Yep, and it starts from here. So we have the budget cards, and from the budget card here, let me squeeze this one, you can see we have a way of checking the count of budgets from here, because here we've shared the view with all the budgets. So it is going to count if the budget is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, so we are going to have this grid of cards, which we are going to loop through all the budgets that we have, and then from that budget we're going to show the category, we're going to show the category color, then we are going to show the name of the category. The monthly limit means we are going to show the following things. Here we are going to have this link for editing the budget if you want to edit that budget, and then we are going to have the button for deleting the budget. Okay, so when you click the delete budget, it should call the delete budget function that we defined here. Okay, and if you click this edit budget, so it should call the method for editing the budget, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And for now means we are going to show those cards, and on the card body, so this is actually a header of the card, you can see from here, and then from the card body we are going to show the amount. So you see the amount is coming from the budget, then the amount, and we have formatted it to be in a well formatted number, and the decimal places to be only 2. And then we are going to show the progress, like the progress in a percentage way. So here you can see, we see if the percentage is greater than 100, so the text should be in red, and if it is greater than 90, so it should be an orange, and up to here, you see. So similar way for the background color, which shows the progress, like the progress bar. Okay, and after that we have the stats for that particular budget. So you can see we show the number of amount spent, and we show the amount remained, and we check for the colors and for amount remaining, so in order to control the color. Okay, so the color of the text. So if the remaining amount is less than 0, so the remaining amount color or the text of the color should be red, and if it's not that, it should be green. Okay, and if the remaining amount is greater than or equal to 0, then we can show the remaining amount, and if it's not that, we are going to show the negative value of remaining. Okay, so down here we have the status badge, which shows the following status. So if the budget is over, means we're going to show that the budget is over. Okay, else if the percentage is greater than or equal to 90, means we are going to show this, that this particular budget is on critical states. Okay, and if the percentage is greater than or equal to 8, means we are going to show that this is in warning, that the user should pay attention when spending, because the remaining amount is actually, like, the percentage that he already spent on that particular budget is above 80%. Okay, and then if the budget is still below this mentioned the amount, so we can just say this is on track, so the user can continue to spend. Okay, and after that we have an else condition here, because on top here we have if condition, so we were checking if the budget is greater than 0. So if it happens it is 0, so we are going to show the empty state. So on the empty state, this is how it will look like, you see. So it will say no budget for this particular selected year and month, okay, and then it will say you can be able to create a new budget from here. So this will be like a button, and then from that button it will direct us to the budget creating page. Okay, yeah, and after that if we go back here, you see, so this is the CRUD that I have shown you. So this is on else condition because we don't have any of the budget. That's why you see this particular CRUD. Okay, and after that we have the tips, like the tips for directing your user on what to do. So we are going to add that tips down here. So let me just add it from down here. So it should be like this one, and after that you should be able to see those tips down here. And the tips actually are going only to be shown if the budget count is greater than 0. Okay, so if it is less than that, you should not be able to see this one. So let's make this one on empty state to adapt it to dark mode. So let's say dark, then background should be neutral, then like this is actually inside this div, so this should be gray. So let's use gray, the gray of 800. And after that we need to update this text. So this text should be by default, but on dark mode we can say text should be of gray of 200, and similar way to this one. So let's see, but instead of 200, so we can just make it to be a little bit fade, so we can use 300. Yep, and after that we have this button for creating your first budget. So if you click this one, it is similar to the button that you should click here. Okay, so this is all about the budget listing. So now let's work on the create budget form, and then we should be able to start to see the budgets here. So let's work on that. So let's open the budget form. So let's go to the budget form, which is this one, and after that now let's start to define the following public properties. So we are going to have the budget ID of the budget that we are editing. We are going to have the amount of that particular budget, the month, the year, and category ID. And after that we are going to check if we are doing edit or not. Okay, and we are going to have the following rules of validations. Okay, so on the validations we are going just to use the following rules. So on amount we need to make sure that it is required, it should be numeric, it should be minimum, the minimum value should be 0.01. On a month, a similar way, we are going to have the required, something like that, and we are going to check for the duplicate budget, because when you are editing, so if the field is marked as unique, so means it should give you an error. So to avoid that, we are going to use this if condition, which we will check if we are on edit, so means the unique rule should change, like you see. So this will be the unique rule, but if you are not doing the edit, so this should be the unique rule. So you can see here it is returning null, but here it is returning the actual value. Okay, and after that we have this for category ID. You can see it here, and after that we are returning the rules. So these rules will be returned by this method. And if you want to customize the messages, basically particular for any of these validations that we have up here, so you can just use this protected messages, then you return this associative array, and then you define the column, then the condition that you are checking, or the rule that you are checking. So if it is on required, you can just say, if the user does not put anything on amount, you can say please enter a budget amount, okay, which you are trying to override the default messages from Livewire. Okay, and after that we are going to have the mount function. So the mount function should be like this one. So it has the budget ID, which is by default it will be like null, and then we're going to have an if condition. So inside this if condition, it will check if the budget ID exists. So we're going to say we are doing the edit, and we are going to put that one to true, and then we assign the budget ID to this budget ID property that we defined up here. Okay, and after that we are going to load the budget. So to load the budget, we are going to define this method in a minute. So we're going to load it, but else if we don't get the budget ID, means we are not doing the edit. So we are doing the creating. So if we are doing the creating, we need to have the instance of the current month and current year. Okay, after that, let's define the load budget method. So the load budget method should be like this one. Import this budget model. Okay, and after that we need to get the instance of the budget by using the ID which is actually already defined here. Okay, so after that we need to check for authorization of that user, because the budgets are belonging to the users. So if the logged in user is not equal to the ID or the user ID of that budget, so if it's not the owner of that particular budget, so we just need to abort and give this status code which shows that this user is not authorized. Okay, and after that, if that is not the case, so the user is the owner of this budget, so we're just going to assign these values, and after assigning those values, we need a way to save those datas. Okay, so in order for us to be able to save those data, let's define the following method, which should be called the save. Okay, so this is the method for saving the budget. Okay, so we have the validation, which we will call the rules that we defined here. Okay, and after that it should be define the data on how we want to show the data. So the user ID, amount, month, year, and category ID, we assign them with these values or the properties that we have already defined up there. And after that, we have an if condition. So if we are doing the editing, means is edit equals to true, which we have already put it here, because that is when we are doing the edit. And if that is true, means we need to get the instance of the budget, which is the current budget, and then we are going to check for authorization. I've already explained that, and then we are going to update the budget by using this data. Okay, this is the data that we are passing here. But after that, we are going to show the flash message saying the budget is updated successful. But if we are not doing the edit, means on else we are just creating the new budget. So here you can see we are calling the budget, then create. After that, we are going to create by using the data that you defined here. Okay, so it's that simple. And after that, you are going to redirect back to the budget.index. Okay, so after that, before we go forward, we need to have the following computed properties. And these properties will be helping you to get the year, the month and categories, which will help you on the form so that you can be able to select or to auto-populate the current year and current month. So let's define them a little bit quickly. So let's say public function month is okay, and after that we can just say return collection, the range. Okay, let's call the range method, and after that we need to say on the range of 12 months. Okay, let's map that to function, and after that let's close that one. So it should be something like this one, and then inside here we're going to do the return, and we're going to return the following array. So we're going to say value should be a month, and on the name should be the instance of a new date that we are going to create. So create and after that we are going to format this one to this particular format. Okay, and here terminate. Make sure you've imported this one. Yep, so this is how we are going to return the months of that particular year, and also we need to define the one for years. So make sure that you are using the computed attribute here. Okay, and let's use it like this way. Okay, and then let's define the method for categories. So on the categories, basically we are going to return the following thing. So it's just a matter of getting the categories, and then we are going to check the ID, which should be equals to the ID of the logged in user, and after that we are going to order them by this way, and after that we also need to get the year. So we are going to change just this one a little bit. So this should be years. Okay, and on years we are going to change that to use this code. Okay, so what it does, it will get the instance of the current year, and then it will give the the collections of this range. So the year -1, and the end year, which should be the current year plus 2. So that should be the years that you should be able to see them. So you should be able to see like 3 years. Okay, and after that now we should be good to go, but here we need to make sure that we shared the additional data to the blade view, and from this point we're just going to show the computed properties that we defined. So here we're going to have the categories, and we have the months, and the last one should be for years. Okay, yep. So now this is good. So the next thing is to update the form now. So if you see these errors, as I've mentioned before, you can use this auth for the side. Then you can just say user then ID, and make sure you import the facade like this one. Okay, now means you can just go back and update all of this. Okay, yep. So now everything is fine. Now let's go to the form. So this is the form. So currently when you navigate to the create page, see, so you don't see anything on the page because we didn't already define the form. Okay, so let's define that quickly. Okay, so this should be the form, and then I'm going to start to explain to you step by step. Okay, so this will be the form. It has a header, and on this header, basically before that we have this background, which you should be make sure that this adapted to the dark mode. So we can just say background should be neutral of 900, and then on this let's say a heading of that form, you see the background is white, so you can just go back here and refresh. Okay, so property not found. Let's see, years. Yeah, this one should be years. Okay, yep. So this is the form of full budget, and as you can see, it has this heading, and down here you can see we have a way of selecting a month, then a year, and you can see we have only like 3 years, and here is where you're going to select the category, and after that you are going to supposed to add the amount of the budget. After that you have these tips which we have for helping the user like to know what they can do, or to help them on how they can do. And after that this is budget examples. So these can be the examples of what a user can use to create their first budgets. So let's update this one to adapt to the dark mode, and then we are going to see on how that works. Okay, so after that, now let's make this one on dark mode. The background color to be of gray of 800. Similar way to this one. And also this one. Basically, and on the examples. Okay, and after that, if you refresh, you should be able to see the updated page. And after that, now let's update this text. So on the dark mode, so the text should be gray of 100. Okay, so this one, let's update the other one. Similar way to this one. Yep, so you can see budget details, budget period, and these budget examples. So now let's update these ones on the labels. So on the labels, I'm going to use the 300. Okay, and after that, the background color of this one, the select so we're going to say on dark mode should be, let's say, of grade or gray of 700. Okay, yep. So now if you select this one, you should be able to see the months and years. Okay, and after that, let's update the one for categories. Yep, so these are the categories that we have already added, and on the label this should have the dark mode and the text should be gray of 200. Okay, similar way to the other one. Yep, and after that you can update this one. Okay, like this one on dark mode can be like a blue of, we can just say like of 200. I don't know. Let's see how it looks like. Yeah, this is fine basically. And then let's update this cancel button. Okay, the text should be of gray, like of 300, I guess. Let's see. Yep, and when you hover on dark mode, it should be like of 400. And now let's see. Yeah, that's not bad. So now means we are able to create our first budget, but let's update this one on heading 2. So you can see on our budget, now we see the create new budget, which is this one. So we need to make sure that this adapt on dark mode, and then the text should be of gray, like of 200, and this one should be of 300. Yep, and now we can be able to see that the current month was auto-populated, the current year was auto-populated. The user can be able to select the category, but you can leave that blank so that if you want to create the overall budget without specifying the specific category. But if you want to create it for specific category, just select like this one, and then you can give it like amount. So let's say on education, I want to spend only $100. So let me click create budget. Now I should be able to be redirected to the budgets or the budget listing. Okay, attempted to read the property ID on null. Okay, so it says this is empty. Okay, so we see this error saying we are attempting to read property ID on null, which is an internal server error. And as you can see, it is pointing to this wire key attribute, and then you see when we are trying to access the ID. So basically, this means budget is null. While we've already created one budget, if you go to the database and go to the budgets, you should be able to see the first budget that we created, which is this one. Okay, so if we are seeing this, means the budget is not created accurately. So let's try to debug and see what can be the cause. So here the budgets, we assign it the computed property, which is coming from this one. As you can see, this is a computed property. So let's see what happens inside there. So this is the one. This is the computed property of budgets, where we get the instance of budget, and then we call the category relationship. So let's see if this relationship exists in budgets. Yeah, so this one exists, so that is not the cause. So the second line, we are checking for the user ID for the user that created the budget, if it matches with the user that has logged in the system at the current time. And then we check for the month, which check for the selected month, which should be good. Actually, for the year too, this should be good. Okay, and then we get the data. So for example, let's try to remove this one, the mapping, and save. Now let's try to see what will happen here. Yep, so this works. It works just fine. And okay, now I understand the thing. So means the issue is on this mapping. Let's try to return it to mapping. So this mapping, okay, so now if you go back, you should be able to see that error. Okay, so means here we added this. So for the spent, the get spent amount, let's see here, it checks for the category ID, it gets the total spent amount for that particular month, and then if that's not then it check for the expenses for that user in a month, and then it sums the amount. So this is good. And for the remaining, get the remaining, so it will check the total amount of that budget, and then it will subtract to the spent amount, so that is good. Then the percentage, we get the percentage used, which is this one. So when the amount is 0, so it will return 0. Then it will use the get spent amount divided by total amount, then times by 100, so, or multiplied by 100. So this is fine actually. And the last thing is over budget, which is this one. So spent amount, if it's greater than the amount of that particular budget, so this should return true. Okay, so all of that is good. So what can be causing the issue here possibly can be, okay, so yeah, because this is a void function, so basically we are required to return the value here. Okay, so you have to return the budget. So let's save and let's see. Yep, so the thing was we were not returning this value. Okay, so after adding this line, so now we should be able to see the application working fine. So you can see now we have the budget, and this is the budget that we created, and you can see the background of this header CRUD is basing on the category that you select for that particular budget. Okay, so for example, you can see from the categories, if you go to the categories, you can see this is the color that is on education. You can see, so the education have this color. So now if let's say you want to create another budget, let's say for food and dining, so here you have to select food and dining. Let's say you put let's say 2000 and then you create. Okay, yep, so you see now on our budget the total budget is now 3000, and then you can see the remaining equals to, so remaining equals to the total budget, and then total spent now is 0, and the percentage used is 0. So means all of these things that we added on the mapping, now they are working fine. And the correlation you can see, so if you go back, so for food and dining, you can see the color is red, so that's why you see the background of this header of this card is red. So now you can be able to edit these categories, I mean any budgets. So for example, if I click this, okay, so edit, it says this one is not found. Okay, so basically, I guess this is coming from, let's check it, from the code here. Already we have the form, I mean the budget form component, and we have this save method, which can act as saving and also on updating. So if we are doing edit, so means it we are supposed to use this one. Okay, but currently it says we didn't have that page. Okay, so you can see, so this page means is not found. So what we are supposed to do is to check if we have, because on the budget listing here we have these two buttons. So we have the one for edit and we have the other one for delete. So the one for edit, it is called the budgets, then you bind the ID of that particular budget, and then it is edit /edit. So let's see if we have that route here. So we have the budget create, yeah. So we didn't create the one for edit. Okay, so let's create that. So route, and then we are going to say get, and then we can call it budget, which should match with the one that we see. So budget, let's see, and then /, then we need to bind the budget. Okay, and it should be budget ID actually, and then we can call the edit, and after that we should call the budget form. Okay, and then we need to give it a name, which should be budget dot edit. Okay, so this is fine. Now let's save it and let's go to the code, and now let's refresh. Yep, you see, so now it has changed this title to edit budget, and you can see you are updating your budget, and this is happening dynamically. So on the same form we are doing all the edit and the create. So you can see from here, so if it is edit, so it will change it to edit budget, and if you are creating, it will be creating. Okay, so this flag will help you to reuse the same form for different purposes. Okay, so after that, yeah, everything here on the form will remain the same. So here you can see now the current month and year have been selected automatically. You can see the category for that particular budget and the amount that you appointed to that particular budget. Okay, so now from here you can be able to change it, let's say to 3,000, and after that, let's say you want to save it, so update budget. Yep, so you see now it has updated the total budget to 4,000, and the total spent is 0, and the remaining equals to the total budget, so it means the usage is 0%. So from here you can switch between the months and this data will change. So for example, if I go back to September, you see, so we don't have the budget for September. So that is a quick way of navigating, or a quick way of doing filtering. Okay, you can see, so this is create your first budget. So if the user create the budget, so let's say they create the one for September, so here you can see we can create, let's say on 20, then create. Yep, so you can see on total budget of October it is not there. So if we go back to September, you should be able to see it. Okay, so this is the one for September. Okay, and after that, now means in order for this usage percentage to work and this progress bar to work, means we are supposed to add the expenses. So when we will start to add the expenses, that's when we are going to see this working. So now if you see from here, we were able to add the category, the budget based on categories. So you have to know that you can also be able to create the overall budget. So the overall budget means it will be for all categories, and all categories can use that budget, because on expenses you are supposed to select the categories specifically. So if you don't put the category, the overall budget is the one that is going to be used. Okay, so if you don't select any category and leave it that way, means we are going to add the overall budget of, let's say, 1,500, and then we are going to save. So this is for October. So you can see now the overall has been updated, and you can see the remaining is the same. But here you can see the overall budget, even its calculation is not from categories. See, so on categories we have only for food and education, but now we have this one for overall. And this one, as I've mentioned, you will see it progress only when you do the expenses without using any specific category. Okay, so this is actually a good approach, because when someone try to, let's say, to separate the usage for education, something for this category and that category, and they should have another one, let's say, for overall expenses or day-to-day expenses. So this will be useful. Okay, so for now, means we have everything that we need for budget. So the next step will be to start to add the expenses, and then from there we are going to start to add the recurring expenses. So for now, this is the end of the third video. So see you on the fourth video, where we'll be studying about how you can add the expenses. So thank you for watching. See you on the next video.